Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hi, hello everybody there. Welcome to NPTEL's course on communication skills. We've been on a very interesting module, and this module is on interview skills. And we are towards the concluding part of this series of lectures on interview skills. This is module number 8, lecture number 6 on interview skills. Now, in the past 5 lectures, I've been trying to begin with the clearing of misconceptions about interviews, defining what is an interview, what is the purpose of an interview, and what kind of P's. I said there are 3 P's which are required. So, one is to prepare, and before preparing is to plan, and after plan and prepare is to practice. And then at length I discussed about how you can plan, prepare and practice, particularly in terms of preparation. I said you should know about the company, you should know much about yourself, especially in terms of your limitations and merits. And you should also know how to present your merits as well as defend your limitations. And then we proceeded to discuss something about certain factors which appear to be key factors in determining your success in interviews. Now, following that, in the previous interview, I took you up to the stage of getting into the interview room, and now we'll just continue with that aspect of attending an interview, and we will focus on this lecture on attending an interview and closing an interview, and then we'll look at some post-interview functions. Now, in terms of attending an interview, in the previous lecture, I was emphasizing on the fact that body language plays a very crucial role. So, here it's much about presenting yourself. Sometimes just your nervousness will actually mar an otherwise charming presentation. So, you by nature, spontaneously, you may be quite a charming person, but your nervousness and then your reserve, your shyness in the interview can harm your whole performance. Confidence, apart from or along with the presentation skills that goes with your body language, will ensure success. Now, in terms of presenting yourself, you should try to establish a good personal contact. When I say good personal contact, it means you should be able to create a dual image, one that is very friendly and another one that's very professional. It's a combination of friendly but at the same time professional. Or you can say rather, you should create a professional image but at the same time friendly image. Now, this means you are formal but not too formal. You are slightly informal but not completely informal. You are friendly in the sense you are warm, you are affable, you are amenable, and then you don't take some of their criticisms to your heart. You're not very serious about them, and then you react very spontaneously and genuinely to those criticisms, and you just forgive even if they try to hurt you by their aggressive, rude behavior just to put you under stress. So you're friendly, and then you don't look at the limitations of the panel, you rather cooperate with them, and at the same time you are professional. You try to emerge as a victor in any kind of stressful situation because you have developed some skill set in terms of interview skills. Now, the next important thing that I've been emphasizing on the past 2 or 3 lectures is about your body language, and be aware of the body language, especially of the negative body language that can cause distraction. When you begin, the most important thing about body language is to shake hands. So shake hands and don't be afraid of being only a student. And in case you are a very inexperienced first time starter, so don't be afraid of the fact that you are just a student or just a novice without any experience. Remember, in the first lecture or so, I mentioned that interview is something that's happening between equals. They are offering you money, they are offering you reputation, but you are offering your time and expertise, for which you are equally valuable. In certain cases, you are much more valuable than what they are going to give you. So, why should you feel that you are just a student or you are just somebody without any job? Don't feel so. You have something in you, and then look forward to shaking hands with somebody as a peer, as an equal person. While entering, again, don't forget to ask permission to sit down. So, in most of the cases, they will say that please take your seat, and then you may say thank you, and then you may take the seat. But there are occasions where they just want to say, how do you react? So you can ask, uh, may I sit down, sir? Okay. So then they may say that, yeah, you can sit there. Or you can even ask, which seat should I take, sir? Okay. Or may I sit on this seat? And so on. Now, indicating that you are seeking permission before sitting, so that shows that you are polite and cultured, and then you are not doing anything intrusive which they don't want to happen. For instance, they must have designated a particular seat for the candidate, and there may be another one for the visitor or somebody from the panel who is likely to come late. It shouldn't happen that you go and occupy that seat in which the interviewer is supposed to sit. So that creates a lot of embarrassment from both sides. So keep that in mind, but at the same time, remember to ask permission. And when you give the handshake, look at this picture. It should neither be the dead fish nor the knuckle grinder handshake. This is the dead fish handshake, and this is the knuckle grinder handshake. So, dead fish, when I say dead fish, you just give the handshake because you are so nervous, you are very cold, you are afraid, and it is somewhat sticky, wet, and then you just wriggle out of the handshake immediately. And the other person gets the feeling that he is actually touching a dead fish. On this side, the knuckle grinding, the extreme form of exuding confidence, and then you grind the knuckle of the other person. This is also not advertised. What is advised actually is a firm handshake. It should be firm, it should be exuding confidence, and it should be radiating warmth, but it should not in any way make the other person feel uncomfortable because you are harming the other person by holding it tight and grinding these knuckles, or you are also just giving it for a second and then slipping out of it immediately. Then also the person feels embarrassed, he feels lack of warmth. So avoid that, give a firm handshake. Now, other than handshake, generally you should be careful about your gestures, and it should be very limited. You should not be overusing gestures. There are some natural and meaningful gestures. So in a conservative situation, in an Indian context, for example, people may not appreciate you shaking hands with the other person, especially the person who is supposed to be senior, and then trying to sit there and then judge you, and then he is the one who is the boss who is going to give you the job. In such occasion, the praying position, as it is shown in the figure here, the praying position or the Indian equivalent is namaste. So it creates a respectful distance, but at the same time shows that you are still following the customs, still following the norms which are required for showing your body language in the given situation. You are not violating any norms. They should not think that giving a handshake at that level is too presumptuous in that conservative situation. But nowadays, in most of the cases, they themselves would offer it. So in that case, there is no harm. But you trying to snatching a handshake from them, which they didn't want to give you, so that should be avoided. But in that case, in an Indian context especially, you can go for the praying position or namaste, so which shows that you are still following the custom, but at the same time you are respecting it and you are not violating any of the norms which they have kept in their mind. Now, more about handshake. If handshake is allowed, a firm handshake is appropriate and it projects confidence. So, when it is weak, it is projecting that you are somewhat weak in terms of confidence also. While shaking the hand, you should not look at the hands. Actually, you should still try to maintain eye contact. Look at the eyes and then give the shake. Look at the face generally while giving handshake. More focused on eyes, still better, but at least look at the face while giving the hand. Then, some people have difficulty in maintaining direct eye contact. They feel embarrassed. So, in terms of cultural differences, if you remember the lecture on intercultural communication, so we understood that people from South Asian part of the world are generally taught in a particular manner in which, in order to respect their elders, they don't see eye to eye. They often bow down and then they show respect that way. So, because of this nature, whenever the person sees an elderly and respectful person, often the person bows down and lowers the eyes. Now, this being the fact, if the person is not able to maintain eye contact, there is no harm. Then what is suggested is, they say that you better remember the person's eye color. Don't focus just on the eye, just you focus on a general part of the eye, one thing. Or slightly you can just go above and look at the forehead, or slightly you can come down and look at the nose if you find it embarrassing. But at least focus on the front part of the face. So that gives them a feeling that you are still confident, and then you are looking at them, you are honest, you are direct, and then you are plain and simple. So it doesn't lead any complication at the handshake level itself. Then repeatedly it has been told that the first 30 seconds, maximum it has been said the first 5 minutes. There are some people who argue that it's just the first 90 minutes, and then there are many who say that it's the first 60 seconds. Now, in the first 60 seconds, if you observe, so much happens. You knock at the door, you enter, and then sometimes in your nervousness, you may slip something. You may make noise while pulling the chair, or you may fumble on something, and then you may even fall down. Or you just nervously say something, you're not sure what to say, and then you just go and take the hand of somebody and shake it. They have not asked you to sit down, you sit. You have not taken any permission. In that 60 seconds, so many things can happen. Okay. Now, what are the tips for improving your non-verbal communication skills during that 60 seconds, which often determine your success in the interview? 1. Maintain eye contact. Never forget this. Do not look at the wall that's beyond the panel members. Do not look above. Do not look down. Look into their eyes and maintain eye contact. Then once you sit, and then when they are talking something, even when they are asking questions, even when you are not supposed to answer immediately, or when they are arguing something, just nod. You can just nod your head to show that you are agreeing with something. Okay. Slight smile to show that you are appreciating something. So this nod or smile to show that you are with them. So that again tries to help you in building up a rapport. Followed by that, overall, if you smile, you also show animation. You show that you are a lively person. Okay, so smile. And the posture in which you are supposed to sit. You are not supposed to lean back completely, which will show that you are withdrawn, you are indifferent. You are not supposed to sit straight, which will indicate that you are stiff. You are supposed to slightly lean forward. Okay, slight forward leaning, and not on the back of the chair exactly, somewhat in the middle and towards the end. you occupy a position and slightly lean. This is indicating that you are much more interested in what's happening. The lean back would indicate that you show disinterest. So lean forward, and one step ahead of leaning forward is that they say if you could spontaneously mirror their gestures, so you are just on the winning side. Especially the positive gestures, if you could do it, so then again you win. You will find that even the members of the panel, they are also slightly leaning towards you. Mostly in rare cases where one or two may be indifferent, maybe they had decided somebody else, so they sit aloof. But most of the times, especially the person who is quizzing you, will be trying to lean towards you and then put forward some questions. So you also try to mirror that gesture, you also try to lean towards the members. When you speak, speak at a moderate rate, neither too fast nor too slow, at a moderate rate, which anybody will be able to follow. The person may be a slow listener, the person could listen so fast, but in both cases you speak at a moderate rate so that both of them will be able to listen to you. And then most of the times when you speak, when they are asking you, is that possible? Could you do this for us? Have you done this? So when you are trying to answer it, try to answer in an assuring tone. Yes, sir, it could be done. How? Because I have done this before. And the overall tone itself should be in a confirmatory, assuring manner. It should not be skeptical, it should not be doubtful, indicating that you are fearful inside, but then you are trying to cover it up. So don't do that. Be positive about it and give them this assuring tone. Then, to continue with the first impression that is created with body language, in the first 10 to 20 seconds, try to make a favorable first impression. This, of course, is generated by the way you are asking permission and coming in, and then whether you are deciding between handshake or namaste, whether you are just going to pull the chair or ask permission or sit, and how are you going to sit, whether you are going to smile. All these things are determined in that first 10 to 20 seconds. Then build up the initial favorable impression for the next 5 minutes, when they are just simply asking very informal questions as if they are just chatting with you. Build up the rapport. So you confirm and establish a positive relationship during these 5 minutes. Now, most of the times, as I've been repeatedly telling you, within these 5 minutes, you are actually selected. The remaining 20 minutes, 30 minutes is just to confirm your subject knowledge, just to negotiate with you about the salary position, etc. But these minutes are really crucial. So think about it. And generally, how do we behave in such situations? We form our opinions and gather insights over such a short period of time. Although it is not justified, we actually do it and later draw our conclusions based on them. Now, to look at it from another angle, if you ask what makes a first impression, it's clothing, of course, followed by cleanliness and grooming, hairstyle and color, body weight, height, race. Now, race means so many things, and legally speaking, things like race, things like color, things like age, things like gender are the ones a good employer is not supposed to discriminate against. Okay. In fact, it is illegal if somebody is basing the interview selection based on these kind of criteria. But still, let's look into some of these aspects. Some of them you can really help. Some you are actually helpless. So you cannot do anything about it. Now, first look at the problems with clothing and appearance as part of nonverbal communication. People often look at appearances to make a first impression, which can be interpreted incorrectly. Often, somebody with long beard, not trimmed, very untidy look, hair unkempt, dress looking very shabby, not even washed properly, and then a kind of rugged, torn jeans, So the person enters the conference and then everybody thinks that what kind of person is he? So he's among the audience, and then the host comes and talks about a very eminent scientist, and then when everybody is clapping their hands when they hear about the CV, the achievements of the person, and then the host requests the persons to stand up, and to the surprise of the audience who must have formed a negative impression about this person gets up, the same shabby looking person. Then they realize that okay, he's so absorbed in his job, he doesn't get time or he doesn't care about this external appearance. And then he holds the mic and speaks the first word, first sentence. The audience are obviously mesmerized. So he has the power in terms of his intellectual, spiritual, and he has the knowledge that has made him academically so superior. So he is just a person who is defying these kind of norms. But even otherwise, you could understand that most of the audience would have formed a negative impression initially, and then they correct it when he actually delivers the talk. Now, in your case, often you won't be able to correct that impression unless you are extraordinary, when you have created a negative wrong impression at the beginning because of your clothing. So take that seriously, and although they may interpret incorrectly looking at your clothes, if you pay enough attention, you'll be able to create that favorable impression, which you can reinforce later using your verbal competence also. Then, why bad impressions can be harmful? It can be harmful in many situations, particularly like job interviews. You go with a bad impression, like in the previous lecture, I told you, despite an intelligent candidate that she was rejected because of the slightly uppish, modernish kind of dressing, which they thought doesn't suit the conventional background, and they rejected the candidate. So, job interviews, it can cost you a job, just the first impression itself, based on clothing. Meeting with potential clients, even just by looking at the dress, the clients form their own impression. And in personal situations, like you're supposed to meet your new in-laws, they first look at you, look at your appearance, even before deciding whether to give the girl or not. So just look at these situations where dressing plays a very crucial role. And how should you make a good first impression in an interview? Once you have taken care of the dress part, the clothing part, generally, if you know before about the company, if you have researched the company to find out its values, it's of great help. How? Once you know the values, you can even choose a clothing that suits their values. So some company will be very modern, very informal, suit a dressing that suits that. Somebody is quite traditional, conservative, suit something that will be according to that value. So know the company first, know the values, and dress accordingly. Clothing often speaks louder than skills. If you do not dress up for the interview, you send a message that you are not interested in the job. Whereas, once you dress up for the interview, by finding out what type of dress code is enforced, and when you dress appropriately, you are showing that already you are ready for the job. Now, companies report that they base 90% of their decision on whether an interviewee is right for the job based on appearance alone. They just look at the appearance and then they decide whether the candidate suits it or not. And many employers decide within the first 30 seconds if an applicant will fit into their company based on looks. So, in the previous slide also I was telling you about clothing and the importance, and in this one I am just trying to highlight how you should look at it from the company's perspective, from the company's point of view, and make appropriate modifications in your dressing behavior and in your presentation. There are some appearances that we can change, and how do we deal with them? For instance, weight, height, and race. So this is something that you cannot do anything about it. Although in terms of weight, you can take lot of efforts to slightly modify. You have to take great pains to reduce weight. Increasing weight is easier than reducing weight, all of you know this. But at a point, the weight sort of stabilizes. So you're known, for instance, as that fat man, as that fat lady, or as that lean guy, or as that tall lady, or as this short woman. Okay. Now, weight, height, and race. So, I don't want to say about race, but then again, they will say that dark fellow, that white man, and so on, based on the color, based on even the hair, and all that, that comes with race. Now, these aspects we are actually helpless about on the one hand, but still we should be able to defend and argue for them. What you can do is you should have notable examples in whichever race, whichever height. So, suppose it is short, you have so many examples in the history to quote. People who are short, but then they have conquered the world. If they consider height as a kind of negativity, you should have enough examples, and you should be able to quote your own anecdote where your own height was very helpful in winning something. And same thing in terms of weight. So if you appear to be overweighted, so you should be able to defend it. You should be able to say, I am still sportive, I am playing some games, or my office is on the 6th floor, I just don't use the lift, I climb, I'm fit, I'm flexible. So that is what they are looking for. When they think at somebody as fat, what they want to see is whether that fatness is going to be a kind of obstacle in their performance in the job. So if the person can prove, no, that's not an obstacle, then it's fine. So you should be able to change the views on appearances, which we cannot actually change. You try to change their view, you try to argue, but at the same time, accept who you are, whatever race that you belong to, whatever kind of appearance that you have, accept who you are and be proud about it. This non-verbal communication is also powerful, especially in cases like civil service interviews. I've seen successful candidates defying these physical norms. A very lean and thin lady for IPS. Okay, but when she's talking, very powerful oratory skills, very influencing capacity, very forceful personality, and very dynamic in thinking. Now, this comes out of the whole nature, and the whole personality is exuding confidence despite that thin stature. That probably the person is maintaining using diet and being healthy and all that. But if you think of the post and you want somebody who is strong, now the person is defying that kind of notion. But then the person is also able to defend that, come what may, I may look like this, but my thinking, my action will totally differ from the impression that you will form based on my looks. So do that. And that kind of non-verbal communication, that I'm not the person whom you think of just by looking at me. So if you could prove that, and if you can show that in form of confidence, that also radiates positive energy. On the one hand, when I say that you should be able to work out, you should be able to defend that which you are helpless about. On the other hand, I should also tell you that perfect the appearance features that you can change. When I say basic interview questions, I mean the most fundamental questions that the panel members will be asking about your subject knowledge, and questions related to verifying your CV, questions related to your application of knowledge, the most fundamental ones. And these are the ones you should be quite serious about while answering. That's why I told you should remember these 3 rules. First one is to listen to the question quite seriously, and then second is you don't have to rush in to give the answer. You don't have to appear so spontaneous and natural to give answer. As the saying goes, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. So intelligent people, smart people, they don't want to create an impression that they are rash and impatient in giving answer, but they are rather interested in creating the impression that they are very cautious, they are prudent in giving the answer, and this is what they are expecting also. And then followed by that, I said that answer the question only. Why I said this? Because you tend to do two things. One, you do not know the answer, and sometimes instead of saying that you do not know the answer, you try to create an impression that you know something else much better than this. So you do that. Secondly, you have answered this and then slightly you are nervous to just complete. So you keep dragging on and then you try to answer something else. Both are unwarranted, unwanted, and don't do this. So answer only the question, and once you answer it, and once you answer it succinctly, then just make a pause. If you are cool, you can give a gentle smile indicating that you are finished about that question. So that will indicate that they can go to the next question. Instead of sometimes they themselves deliberately letting you feel embarrassed about the silence and making you drag on, meander with something else, you just stop it with a gentle smile. So that will indicate that the answer is over. Give a pause. That's enough. So remember these three rules, and then let me re-emphasize the most important aspect of attending an interview, that is listening skills. Now, while I said that listen before answering, I would like to re-emphasize and tell you that listen carefully. Okay, do not be a marginal listener. Do not be a superfluous listener. Do not look for specific bits of information. Do not look only for the keywords. Listen carefully and ask questions to probe deeper into what the interviewer is telling you. This means you're not only getting the details just like that, you're also trying to get the whole picture. As they say, people who take care of the forest miss the woods, miss the trees, and vice versa. Now, you should be able to take care of both. You should be able to count the trees, at the same time have a holistic view at the forest. This means you are paying attention to the details. At the same time, you are also trying to know what the interviewer is actually trying to ask you, and then you also try to go one step ahead and try to understand that not only this, if you answer this question, what else the interviewer will ask further, and keep thinking. So this makes you a very active listener. So mind is very active during this time. And then sometimes while listening, you put them some questions. Okay, answering by asking another question, that itself is a very smart way. And if you could put it in a very nice and appropriate manner, your sense of humor, sometimes intelligence, will be very much appreciated. Look at this situation. Most interviewers are delightfully surprised by a question that comes from you, such as, how could I help you solve the problem you have just described? Let's say the person is describing a basic problem that's there in the company and that's there in the organization for about decades. Now, the problem has been described just as a matter of fact. Now, you listen to it and then you ask them, would you like me to help? Would you like me to give some suggestion to it? Would you want me to do something about it? So, this makes them feel very happy that you're not only just hearing what they are saying, but you're listening and you're paying keen attention to what's being told to you. And more than that, based on your listening skills, you're also willing to take responsibility as a leader. So that you can show through active listening skills. When I say that be an active listener, part of being an active listener is never interrupting what is being told to you. People have a tendency to interrupt, maybe because of over enthusiasm, that they knew what's going to come, so they interrupt and they give the answer to show that they are ready with the answer. But mostly the second part of the question may change and the answer may be a different one. And secondly, not only just over enthusiasm, just sometimes it's impatience and uncivilized interview skills that makes a person just jump at something and then make the person overreact, what do the person does when he or she overreacts? The person tries to fill in the sentence that comes from the panel members. The panel members are putting a question, and then somebody is speaking deliberately slow, and the interviewee is getting impatient and then starts filling in the blanks. Now, this is undesirable. Even if the person talks extraordinarily in a slow manner, it is expected that the interviewee remains patient. It's also the time for testing one's skills in terms of patience. And remember, patience is again part of active listening skills. Then remember, they are the ones who hold the ticket for admission. So they decide. They can be very slow. They decide the pace. Now, you are not the one. They decide the time. They can conduct the interview for just 5 minutes. They can conduct it for whole 1 hour. So you are not the one who is running, jumping into conclusions, and then you are trying to control the pace. No, they hold the ticket. So keep that in mind. Now, once you are aware of this, certain basic thing about verbal principles just needs an emphasis. One thing you should remember is that often it's not just what you say, it's more about how you say it. What does it mean? The confidence in which you are saying certain things will go with lot of emphasis than the same answer that is just mumbled and said with doubt, said with lot of self-doubt. Now the same thing, sometimes even you would find that somebody getting away with wrong answer just because the person is emphasizing so forcefully and the other persons just believe that to be the right thing. Now, I'm not telling that you just try to bluff your way through, tell lies in the interview by just giving overemphasis. I'm just saying that say the right thing, do the right thing, be truthful, but with emphasis, but with lot of confidence in you, lot of trust in you. So that will show how you are saying the things instead of just what you are saying. What you are saying, already you are thorough. Now, even if you are 100% thorough with what you are going to say, remember that how you say it, how you perform it, it also matters. Now, here you bring in that confidence, enthusiasm, smile, your intelligence and presence of mind. Now, once you are aware of this, during the interview, what should you do and what you shouldn't do? Now, you are just entering there, getting inside the interview. So as soon as you go, you greet the interviewer or interviewers. So as I said before, if it happens to be a group of male members, you may say good morning sirs, or good afternoon sirs, good evening sirs, depending upon the time. If there is a madam, you will also say and madam. So it will be good evening sirs and madam. So you don't neglect her also. And as soon as you go, you decide between a handshake and namaste based on the environment. You take permission for sitting there and then start making the eye contact. Do not look at the wall behind them. Do not look above at the clock. Just look at them gently, but try to maintain eye contact. And once you are maintaining that, give them a firm handshake, especially if they're the first ones to show, be more than willing to do that. Be polite, but at the same time give a smile, and remember to greet everyone in the room. Do not miss anyone, and be self-confident. As I said that just before entering, you should have just thrown out from your mind all kind of negative chatter, and you should believe that you are the 21st candidate. 20 candidates they have interviewed and they are quite frustrated and they have not decided, and you are that candidate who are just entering and creating that warm feeling right from the beginning, and they knew that it's going to be you from the beginning itself. Now go with that kind of self-confidence. If they are not going to select you, who else they can select? So have that kind of confidence. Trust in your own abilities. Go ahead with that. And then in terms of responding to questions, let's look at it more precisely, listen to the entire question. Don't listen only to the first part, middle part, listen to the entire question before you answer. And while answering, be aware of your body language. So do not slouch. So do not reduce your eye contact. As I said, do not look at the clock above. That's the worst body language you can generate, because time is not so important for you at that time, and the most precious time that you have at that moment. And if they are willing to sit with you for 3 hours, you are willing to give that time, the most important time in your life. And that's not the time you look at your clock, or you just look at your watch. So you don't do this even just for uh, the fact that you are nervous and then you want to avoid doing something. But then maintain that eye contact, don't get distracted, be aware of your body language. Don't do anything negative to distract them. And whenever a question is put, take your time, gather your thoughts. If you do not know, you just tell them that, would they mind if you take a guess, if you make a guess, and then you tell them that you can even answer it after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you'll be definitely given time. And whenever you are giving some response, be positive in your responses. So never say, I don't know this. No, I can't answer this. Rather, you may say, I'm not aware of it. I've not come across that yet. I have read about this, but then somehow I missed this. So they may say, don't you know that this is the most important thing? So you may say that, yeah, I'm aware of the fact that it's most important, but for some reason, probably I'm not able to get that book, that material. No, that's easily available. Yeah, I have just recently downloaded or got it. I'll be reading that, but until now, I should be honest to tell you that I'm not able to get through it. Fine. Instead of doing that, if you say, I don't know this, I can't answer this, or just worst interview response, the candidate just looks down, never looks up, doesn't say anything, sits in silence. So be positive. Even if you don't know, nothing will happen, heavens will not follow, heavens will not fall, nothing will happen, no negativity will follow if you are honest about it. Because whatever we know, it's just like a drop in the ocean of knowledge. So whatever we know, and the more we know that the less we know actually. So it will keep on revealing our ignorance. You keep on, the more research you do, the more you know that you know very less. Fine. Now when that is the fact, when nobody can be 100% thorough with everything that's happening in the world, and as human beings we have limitation, even a supercomputer cannot hold everything that has happened, that's happening in this world. When that is a fact, why should we be so pretentious and pretend that we know everything? So be honest and then tell that you are not aware of. And then at the same time, be positive about the things that you know. And then when they ask, okay, what is it that you know? So be positive about the things you know, and then give favorable responses about those ones which you know. Followed by that, speak clearly. When you say something, you don't have to rush through your answer. You don't have to be so slow. Maintain a moderate space. At the same time, speak clearly. This means your enunciation, the word that you utter, you give proper space, timing, and pace also. That means in terms of intensity of the rate in which you are delivering your speech. Give appropriate time. Allow pauses when you are completing a sentence. Now, when you write something, you know that you use comma, you put full stop, and then you give some space, and then when the paragraph ends, there is some white space. So when a person reads from a book, the person is able to understand easily by looking at the white spaces. Okay, the sentence has ended, the thought is complete, the paragraph is finished. Now, when you say the same thing, you need to speak that very clearly, pronounce the words clearly, complete the sentence fully, do not miss out any words to make them understand, okay, I'm finishing this sentence, I'm going to the next one. My whole idea is now completed with this paragraph. can give only by meaningful pauses, breaks in between, and emphasis. So speak clearly. So this is another aspect that you should keep in mind. And then, if required and whenever possible, try to tell a story and use examples. Why it is important? Because people are generally interested in listening to stories or things which are narrated in the form of a story rather than telling them in a very direct and plain and boring manner. And then examples again. Instead of telling some theory directly, if you can illustrate that with an example, again it becomes very powerful. They're able to get it very clearly. They can even challenge you with other examples, but go ahead with further examples to prove that you are right. And of course, they are wrong if required. But if they are right partially, tell them they are partially right, but give suitable example to prove it. So be ready with as many examples as possible, and whenever possible, use a little humor or wit. So that's always appreciated, and that's always throwing another side of your personality, a very light-hearted side, that's indicating that okay, you're a very serious academician, you're a thorough professional, you're scientific, meticulous in your approach, but look at that, you have a good sense of humor also. So this means when everybody is serious and then so monotonously tied up with the job, you can just break that moment by a small bit of humor or by making a small joke, and then you can just reduce the tedium and then make them refresh and go ahead with another task. So use it as and when possible. Another thing that I can tell you about humor is, if you can make the interview members laugh at your wit and intelligence, if you can make them spontaneously laugh at something, if they are genuinely smiling, appreciating the kind of humor that you are exhibiting, which is no nonsense, it's not just for the sake of cracking some joke you're doing it, no, but then it's just going with the subject line, and then you're just throwing an occasional wit. So that's catching them unawares, and then they're quite happy about it, and then they are laughing at it. So if you can make them laugh, you can be almost sure that you'll be selected in the interview. I know some candidates who just went, and then from the outside they said something, and then the candidate responded in a manner that evoked laughter. The candidate continued to respond in a similar manner unknowingly, but then it continued to evoke laughter. I was outside the corridor listening to the sound. It was just roar and laughter. Candidate came out laughing. We thought that the candidate would be rejected, but the candidate was selected with good credits. So generally, interview members are not that serious people all the time looking like monsters, inviting people to the torture chamber. No, they're also looking for people who are genuinely human. And this is one thing that is seen from the humor and wit the person is exhibiting. So keep that in mind. Use a little humor or wit whenever it's possible, and take notes, either mental or physical. In the sense, sometimes there will be small papers, small notepads, and then they will even allow you to take notes. In interviews related to checking your technical skill, what they will do is they will actually put some problem, computer software engineer job, they can just put a problem and tell you to write a program. They can tell you to do something in the form of a flow chart and so on. So they themselves will make you take notes. In certain cases, they may think that notes taking is not a desirable thing. Fine, take mental notes. Remember some keywords if physically it's not possible. Where physically it is possible, just when you listen, just note down certain things very quickly, which you can recall. Especially the question that you don't know the answer right now, and which you are likely to know it much later because you have read about it. It's because of the pressure that's there. Some people function very efficiently in that pressure. Some people, however efficient they are outside, become very weak and perform like a jelly. Okay. They become very volatile. They start melting within. Now, if you belong to this category, it's better that you warm up, and things which comes to you in the first 5 minutes, you may just take the permission to take notes. So take notes. So that's also a desirable thing, especially if they allow you to do that, it's fine. So overall, during the interview, when you are going to respond to the questions, listen to the entire question, be aware of your body language, do not slouch, as I said, mirroring their gesture and slightly leaning forward towards them, showing inclination towards the questions that are put to you, gives you good body language combined with your eye contact and smile. And you don't have to rush to give the answers, just gather your thoughts, wait for the time, appropriate moment to give the answer. Then, whenever you are giving the answer and responses, be positive. Do not generate any negativity. Never say no. Say that you are not aware of certain things. Say that you will get hold of it soon. And even when you say no, it need not be a very emphatic and negative no. It can be just a matter of fact no. Speak clearly, which is very important because they need to understand what you are trying to communicate. Often in your fear, you'll be literally tongue tied. So be free, talk freely and clearly, and use stories and examples to illustrate your point. Use a little humor that shows of the other side, and sometimes it guarantees success in interviews also. And last but not the least, if they allow you, take notes. Now with this, we'll conclude this part of the lecture, and we'll go to the concluding part of the lecture where I'll go further about the interview and the closing part of the interview. So till I go to that lecture, I would like you to go through all the other lectures and other modules once again and keep asking these questions which will be in the interview. Keep preparing yourselves for the answers, do some rehearsals, and I'm just going to tell you in the next lecture or so that in case you are not selected, what will happen, and in case you're going to be selected, what are the things that you should be sure of. So until then, I'll say bye and thank you. Prepare well for the interview. Get ready. Thank you so much.